so confused why on the 20th of every single month for the past 6 months, I felt like I had no more money. If something bad happens in 6 years' time, what leg do I have to stand on today that will prepare me for something like that? I just had the scariest thought. What if I didn't get paid last week? Or what if I lost my job in the next couple of months? I mean, it would mean I would have to move out, move back home, get rid of my car, stop wearing weaves. Like I said, it was a scary and dark thought. But what am I doing to prevent all of those things from happening? And I think that's the even scarier question, because if the answer is nothing, then, well, that's my own fault. My name is Dimpo, and I'm an industrial engineer. I work with big companies to improve processes, make them more cost efficient, and I'm realizing that a lot of the things that I do for other companies, I actually need to be doing for myself. So I'm documenting my journey of self-improvement. I am re-engineering my life. And if you're on a similar journey, you're thinking about better ways to do things, please definitely subscribe to the small but growing community, because I want to be surrounded by like-minded people who are trying to live better, healthier, and more sustainable lives. So I started writing a couple of things down when I was thinking about financial freedom. And one of the big things that came up is the fact that as much as we're in control of our day-to-day, we're not that in control. In 2008, there was a financial crisis. In 2020, COVID-19 that basically shut down the entire world. And if we just look at those two major events, they happened 12 years apart from each other. So 12 years from 2020 is 2032. That's in 6 years' time. If something bad happens in 6 years' time, what leg do I have to stand on today that will prepare me for something like that? Well, that's why we need to have this conversation, because I want to change my financial goals. So I've been watching a lot of podcasts with financial advisors and reading a lot of financial advice books to try and restructure the way I think about money. It's just some things that we assume we know, and I also think there's a lot of things that should have been taught in school level, at least at grade 12, about money that we just really didn't focus on. So this is us relearning how to be better with money, aligning goals, and just shifting our mindset. And I'm not talking about mantras, I'm not talking about manifesting, I'm really talking about making a shift into something that will make us better financial human beings. One of the first tips that I learned from a financial advisor is about loyalty. My mother was an employee for a certain company that I won't name, but it's probably a shop we've all shopped in the last 7 days. And she worked at their head office for over 30 years. And she gave me the same advice when I got my first job. She told me that I need to stay loyal to this company, just keep my head down and make sure that I work hard and that they will take care of me. And I fully understand how that advice is applicable to her generation because she didn't necessarily have any qualifications, and in the lack of qualifications, she didn't want to find herself in a situation where she was fighting for a job or fighting for a place in a company. So that's why she built loyalty to the one company for over 30 years. But I think in this day and age where most of us now are educated, we have degrees, we have our honors degrees, our masters, even some of us, not me yet, but I think there is opportunity now in being only loyal to our financial goals. And for me, what that means is actually moving around, finding companies that actually value you and are willing to pay you what you're worth. So how I actually applied that in my life is when I started working, I stayed there for at least 4 years, and then I started looking for a new job. And I got a job. I think it took me about 6 months to find this job. I finally got an offer, but I used that offer to increase my salary at my current job. I think that was in about year 2 or 3 of being there for those 4 years. So that was my first, grasp at this loyalty trick. If there's another company that's willing to pay me more, I tested those limits and found out that the company that I was working for was also willing to pay me just a little bit more because of the threat of leaving. I managed to increase my salary in a matter of 2 years just off of that one trick. If I had stayed in that same company, I think I maybe would have only increased my salary by about 25% over the past 8 years that I've been working. But since that first tactic, I've changed my job over 3 times. I've changed companies and organizations over 3 times. And using my experience, using my gift of the gab, and using my educational background, all of those 3 things have helped me get more money because there are companies that are actually willing to pay. A lot of companies take advantage of the fact that you come in as a graduate or you come in as an intern, and then they increase your money by about 4% every single year. You're not going to go anywhere with a 4% increase over 10 or 20 or even 30 years. But changing companies, that can even double your salary. That's what happened to me. I went from a local South African company to a multinational corporation. They doubled my salary. I went from a multinational corporation to a government organization, and it increased by 25% there. So please find loyalty in your financial goal and not in a company. That's my first free tip that I actually believe always works, hands down. The second tip is something we've all heard, but I think we struggle to put into practice. And it's about knowing your numbers. A financial way of putting it is budgeting.
Talking to someone and saying there are people over 40 now who've never done budgeting at all.
Yes, no, 100%. I've seen that. Some people's idea of budget is, if my salary can't cover it, I have a credit card. That's their budgeting, and that's it. They're like, it's fine. I don't need to know how much I'm paying. For as long as I know I have a credit card, I'll weasel my way around it.
So in your field, you see that too?
Yeah, I see it a lot. It's crazy how people will be like, I've actually never budgeted in my life. Like, what do you mean you haven't budgeted in your life? No. So what do you do when your money comes in? Oh, no, I pay for my bills, I spend and I do this. But I think what we fail to understand is, I say this in my book, that money needs direction. Like, money needs
and that's what budgeting
direction.
Does.
Yes. Otherwise, it comes into your account. We all have experienced this, where you don't have a budget, and suddenly you're spending on this, you're spending on that, you're spending on this, you're spending on that, because when that money comes in, you think, I am rich. It feels like that, like I am rich. But you forget, I've got responsibilities. There are other important things that I need to cover with the salary.
So here's the thing with budgeting that I'm realizing why it's important. I'm a project manager. I used to be a project manager, and a lot of the projects that we had, the first 2-3 steps in building the project is creating a budget. And the reason why we create a budget when we manage projects is because we want to not spend more than what the company is willing to. And we also want to be able to make a profit off of the project that we are creating, right? So we create a budget and then we intentionally track it over the lifespan of that project. Where I think we're going wrong as individuals is that we create a budget maybe at the beginning of the year because that's when we're all hyped to save money or have a savings goal, and then we never look at it again. That's where we're all going wrong, because I'm very much guilty of this. I definitely created a budget at the beginning of the year with my new salary. I needed to know exactly how much my expenses were, and I also then updated my budget when I got my new car. But did I ever look at it again? No. I only recently looked at it again because I was so confused why on the 20th of every single month for the past 6 months, I felt like I had no more money. Like I was living off of maybe 500 Rand when I probably could have been living a little bit better. And it's because I didn't know my numbers. I was using my budget as a checklist thing to do instead of a tool to track my spending. So what I did recently, because I think I just needed help, I drew my bank statement out of my banking app and then I put it into chat. I took my 6 months bank statement, I gave it to chat, and I gave it 3 prompts. I said, I want to save more money. Please tell me how much I can actually maximize my savings by every month. I have new expenses. Please give me a list of all my actual important expenses, including rent, a new car, insurance, and all of that. And also give me a list of all the places where I make unnecessary purchases of high amounts. And it did exactly that. It gave me a new budget where I can save, how much I can save. And trust me, I haven't been saving that amount, but I will be going forward. And it told me exactly where I've been spending my money. I know I've been spending my money with online shopping. I've become a consumer of the online shopping experience, which is one of the places I know I need to stop now. But Chad told me that I spend at least 10% of my salary on Uber Eats, Shein, and Takealot. What the heck? That's way too much money on clothes, food, and things. So budgeting is supposed to be used as a way to track every single day, every single week, and every single month what we're spending and how we're spending, so that our money doesn't just disappear and we wonder why. So that's my second piece of advice: knowing your numbers and actually budget with intention. My third advice is something that I heard from a financial advisor recently.
There's sort of 3 tiers of wealth. Right? The founders, who sort of dig the ground and build it up to a certain point. Then the builders, who sort of build the building. And then the maintainers, who make sure the building is fine. And a lot of the time, founders want to live like maintainers. You can't you can't live in a world where someone who's 3 generations into having money is living in and trying to do that on a budget. You are hurting yourself. So accept your position. If you're a founder, be a founder. Be in the business of ensuring the foundation is deep and it's solid. Then the next generation will be the builders. They'll build the building, they'll put the windows, the finishings, move in the couches, and then the maintainers will live. They will live in the house and it'll be great.
The takeaway that I get from what he said is that we need to realign our mindsets. I would consider my mother the founder of my financial freedom. She had an idea. She knew exactly where she wanted us to live, what education she wanted us to have, and the fact that she wanted me to go to university. All of those 3 things she succeeded in doing to make sure that I had 1, 2, or 3 steps forward from her in financial freedom. If I want to take this forward, I then need to have a builder's mindset. In this example, if I'm the builder, which I should be, I need to focus on building from what I have now instead of trying to start from scratch. I have an education, which means I am lucky enough to not have to be loyal to one company, which means I can increase my earning potential when I need to. That's the first step. The second step is actually budgeting so that I make sure that I save. That's something my mother wasn't able to do. Save. That's what I need to start doing now. Third thing that a builder's mindset needs to have is investing. At some point, once I've saved up enough to cover myself in the worst case scenarios, or in scenarios that I don't have any control over, I then need to start looking into investments. And something important that I heard about investing is the fact that we need to invest with knowledge. A lot of us go into things like Bitcoin because people are talking about it, so then we throw our money in there, but we don't know anything about it. So as a builder, it's my responsibility to, once I've completed all those steps before, is to then gain enough knowledge in how to actually invest, where to invest my money, how to invest my money, making sure that when I eventually have children, they then become the entrepreneurs. They make use of my savings, they make use of my investments, and then they can start something new. I want to be able to build a financial platform for my children so that they don't even have to go and work for someone. That's what I consider financial freedom. It's not about me right now. It's about making sure that my children and their children are set up in such a way that we're actually moving forward financially. That being said, I think this is not going to be the last conversation we have about money. Honestly, there's a lot to take in. I mean, changing jobs is a little bit scary, but it's important to do. Budgeting is something that a lot of us won't do because we are assuming we make enough money to last us the whole month. But it's something we should do if we want to get out of the founder's mindset and get into the builder's mindset. And then the last thing that I think deserves a more in-depth conversation is investments. Like for me right now, I have the Easy Equities app, but I've never used it. So what is investing and how do we invest smart? That's a conversation I think we need to have next. So let me know in the comment section. Tell me what your budget has taught you about you, and tell me if you know anything about investing. So leave me some nuggets in the comment section about investing that I can start researching, and then we'll come back here and chat it up again. Like I said, my name is Dimple. I'm an industrial engineer. I work for big corporations, improving their processes, saving them money, but I think it's time that I start doing that for myself. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please Subscribe to this community. It's small, but it's growing with intention. We are living better, we are making better decisions, and we are trying to live a more sustainable life together. Thank you for watching. Mwah.